It's 1:32. All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is the March 15th Paratransit Coordinating Committee. I will be facilitating the meeting. Our chair is on the line via phone with the 510 phone number.
Zoom meeting.
Let's go ahead and start with introductions. I will read off the list as I see folks on the Zoom. I'm Dana Teray with SCTA. We have Drew Nichols with SCTA. Dennis Battenberg, our chair, calling via phone. Jenna Erickson, our vice chair. Stephen Schmitz, Sonoma County Transit. Arturo Gonzaga, Becoming Independent. John Gaffney, Golden Gate Transit. Kathleen Cortez, Sonoma County Area Agency on Aging. Ross Clendenden, SCTA. And Sylvia Martinez Palacios with Petaluma Transit. All right, let's move on to approval of the meeting notes from January 18th. Does anyone have any corrections to the notes? All right, hearing none. Can I get a motion on that item?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, so that's a motion to approve by Jenna and a second by Stephen. All right. The next item on the agenda is amendments to the TPCC bylaws. These draft amendments to the bylaws were brought to this committee in January for review. Essentially, what we are proposing is a few minor grammatical changes, but the main piece of it is to align the quorum rules with the other committees that SCTA conducts. So essentially, making it so that a quorum is, any vacancies don't count against a quorum. It also gives rules to, if there's not a quorum present at a meeting, that a committee can still conduct the meeting and, without taking action on items. So we didn't receive any comments on these proposed amendments at the January meeting. So I would ask that the committee make a motion now. Also, we could talk through any discussion or questions anybody might have.
I had a couple of questions, but not on the suggested amendments that you had, but just in reading the bylaws, something came up for me.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So on section 9.2, it says something about TDA funds, but I couldn't find a definition of TDA or what it was. There's no.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, these bylaws have been adapted over many years, and I'm sure that got missed somewhere. That's a Transportation Development Act. And actually that item is on the agenda today. I think that if we can make that correction and just spell out TDA.
And then there was a reference in that 9.2C, I think it was, that's what I wrote down anyway, about an unmet needs transit process.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering what that is and where is that defined? What's the process for reporting unmet transit needs?
Yeah, so that is referring to, there's regulations under TDA where essentially TDA funds could be used for roadway projects if there are no unmet needs for transit. SCTA decided many years ago that we would probably always have unmet needs for transit, and we should dedicate all of the TDA funds to transit. So that is what that is referring to
Okay,
in that item.
just curious what that was. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Any other questions on the bylaws? Okay, so yes, then I would like to ask for a motion on adoption of the updates, the proposed updates to the bylaws.
So I always get confused about this, Dana. Are we transit operators? Do we make motions, or are we just listening?
That's a great question, Yuri. And yes, you are a member of this committee and you can make motions. I will just, I can clarify now that there is an item on this agenda that the transit operators cannot vote on. And that's the item 4, the coordinated claim, because you do have a stake in it. But any other items, transit operators are members, regular voting members.
Well, in the interest of moving us along, I so make that motion.
Thanks, Yuri. And
Second.
thanks, John. Any oppositions? All right, great. Thank you. So that brings us to the item number 4, the coordinated claim for transit funding. So this coordinated claim is brought to this committee every year. We develop a coordinated claim to document the distribution of 3 different fund sources for transit operators in Sonoma County. And those are the Transportation Development Act, or TDA, State Transit Assistance, referred to as STA, and that is particularly for one portion of the state transit assistance funding, which is the population-based portion, and Measure M funds. So these are the primary sources of operating fund revenues for the Sonoma County's transit operators. And the coordinated claim documents various funding agreements for these 3 sources of funding, and policies that we've adopted in that define the distribution amounts between the 3 operators. So essentially, the Transportation Development Act funds, those are apportioned by giving 25% to Golden Gate Transit and then distributing the remaining amount between the 3 local bus transit operators based on the population in their service areas. And this is a distribution formula that we've used since the late 90s. The percentages fluctuate a little bit as population changes, but it generally stays the same. And I'll just also note on this that funding has gone up in this area for the TDA funds due to some good sales tax revenue from last year. The state transit assistance funds, as I mentioned, there's 2 different sources of that, which we document in the coordinated claim. The first of which is the population-based funds. And we adopted a formula to distribute those funds among the 3 local bus operators and SMART 4 years back. And that's sorry, that was under a 5-year agreement, how those funds are distributed. And then we also document the revenue-based funds that go to each operator, just for simplicity to include all of those funds in one place. But that is actually comes straight through MTC, and those apportionments are not something that we have influence on. And then lastly, Measure M, that is our quarter-cent sales tax that is administered by SETA. SMART receives 5% of those funds, and the 3 local bus operators receive 10% of those funds, which are apportioned based on their portion of the population in their service areas. So the full coordinated claim is attached in your agenda packet. There's a lot of detail in there, mostly for the operators' documentation and purpose of looking at the various contracts that they have between each other. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
I have a question.
Sure.
Have you thought about getting grants from the state council?
SCTA has not looked into that, but I guess I would let the operators chime in if they've looked into state council grants.
Because once a year we allot a certain amount of money for projects, and there's a large pool of money that gets distributed over the state for different things, and just thought I'd let you know that, so that you guys don't have to spend your money on things. We can get grants from the state.
Okay. Well, I think if anybody has particular questions about those grants, maybe they could get in touch with you. This item here is particularly for these 3 funding sources and the distribution of those.
Okay.
And thank you for your comment.
Sure.
Dana, I just had one question, and I don't know if it's related to the claim. It's probably some formula that is embedded in there, but where it says that there's 20% of the funds go to paratransit services. How is that determined, and where does that come from? That 20%.
Yeah, so I think that's shown under the funds that go to Sonoma County Transit, and it's essentially how the funding is apportioned to each jurisdiction within the county, and then from that jurisdiction to Sonoma County Transit for the services that they provide. And I think that has been kind of a standard distribution of a 80-20%, but I'll let Stephen, I don't know, Stephen, if you have any background on that, how that's documented in the coordinated claim. I'm not because the thing is I don't believe that there's funding that goes particularly to fixed route or paratransit. Those services cost what they cost, and I think it's just how it's documented in the transfer from the apportionment that goes to the jurisdiction and then to Sonoma County Transit. Is that right, Stephen?
I think you're right, Dana. And I can also check in with a couple other folks here to get you a an affirmative answer on that later today. But that sounds right to me, Dana.
Yeah, I was just curious because it might be, you know, if they could document the real cost, then there could be some advocacy, because I know we got our data from California Department of Aging that shows 30% of Sonoma County residents are age 60 and over, and about 1 in 3 have a disability of at least one. So if you could base the paratransit service funding on the population, that might be more, I don't know. I'm just curious just where that formula came from.
I'll get back to you, Kathleen. That's a good question.
All right, any other questions on this item? I'll just let you know the process as well, sorry. I might skip that part. We do ask this committee for a recommendation to our board on adopting the coordinated claim for this year. This also goes to our paratransit coordinating committee, or sorry, this already did go to our transit technical advisory committee. And it was recommended by that committee to adopt the coordinated claim. So we will bring that and the recommendation of this committee to our board when this item goes to our board next month. So I will be looking for a motion for our non-transit members of this committee.
I can do that. And then it would be Lauren or Arturo to second, huh?
I can second it.
Thanks, Kathleen.
And I'm Lauren, and I'll second it.
Thanks, Lauren. And any opposition? No. Okay, great. Thank you all. I just realized I skipped an item. My apologies about that. Item 3A on the agenda is recommendation for TPCC members. So my apologies if we could go back there, Drew. That would be great. So this item is, so last month I let everyone know that we were looking to fill some vacancies, and we put an interest form on our committee's webpage for interest in this committee, and we did get three submittals for that. They came from Arturo Gonzaga from Becoming Independent, who's on the call today. Emily Heinzelman from the West County Community Services Russian River Senior Center, who I don't see on the line, and also from Colin Thoma from the Disability Legal Services Center. Two of these organizations have had representation on this committee in the past, Becoming Independent and the Disability Legal Services Center. So these would be new members coming from these agencies that have been involved in the past. So the staff report has a little background on each of these three members, but essentially the Arturo would be filling a vacant position for the local service provider for people living with disabilities who provide transportation. Emily from West County Community Services, Russian Rivers Senior Center would be filling a vacant position for the local service provider for people living with disabilities, as well, a transportation provider. And Colin Thoma from the Disability Legal Services Center would be filling a position for local service provider for people living with disabilities, non-transportation provider. So staff is recommending that the committee consider appointing all 3 of these candidates to this committee. And I will open up for discussion or a vote.
I vote yes.
I vote yes too.
Thank you. Any objections?
No.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and welcome Arturo and to the other members that will hopefully be joining us at the next meeting.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I'll just say that I missed Drew's update where to remind people from the PUG about today's meeting, so we might have a little less today. And I would just encourage us in general to kind of keep putting the word out to different interest groups that we may be associated with, to just let them know about these meetings, because it's good to get. And I think, you know, I've been on a few different boards where you have new people coming on, and I would encourage them, new members, to kind of touch base with Dana and figure out, you know, what's your role here, just a little bit of onboarding for new members, so that it does, so that, because when you're a new member on a committee, you kind of generally sit back and try to learn by watching, but you know, you guys don't need to watch, you guys can just jump in.
I agree with Yuri, and I did some outreach to recruit members, and I did get some feedback to me, which was a little bit not really discerning, but regarding the Latino membership slot and the way that it's titled, I think that some people maybe were offended by that. Maybe a different title or description of that membership. And also sort of the gist of the email was why, what's in it for us? Why should we join? What is it going to do? So maybe some background on what the committee is, if there's a mission or goals or objectives that you could discuss or put out there or post on the website, because really it doesn't, there's no description really of what the committee does or can do for these populations that are recruited to serve on the board. And that was the gist of the email.
Thanks, Kathleen, for passing that along. I guess I can speak to the title of the representative of the Latino community. The Transportation Development Act guidance has specific requirements for paratransit coordinating committees, which we are. And there's specific requirements for representatives from various organizations and representatives of the community. The way that it's worded in those guidance is that there's a representative of the majority, I guess it says majority minority group, and which is a little bit awkward to say too, but that this group, you know, had previously defined that as in Sonoma County, the Latino community. I think that, you know, we can probably think of a way to word that in our recruitment for members that maybe just say like minority representatives. If that seems okay to the group, I think we could probably, that may be not, it work better for people. And then in terms of, you know, mission, goals, and objectives, that's not something that this group has exactly defined, but you know, maybe that's an item to discuss at a future meeting and come up with those definitions and to kind of give folks a better understanding of what this committee is about. So thank you.
Dana, can you make sure that you touch base with the new members just to help onboard them just a little bit to just, maybe you already do that, but
Yeah, absolutely. I will just make sure that everyone knows that they were, I mean, I've been in communication since, since they did reach out with interest, but I will definitely make sure that they all know that they were added as members to this committee and voted in, and kind of give some more information about how this committee works.
thank you.
Sure.
No, I can see everything.
All right. So that takes us back, if there's nothing else on this item, that takes us back down to item
One other thing I'll just say, Arturo, do you have any questions, for the committee? Just, since you're the newest member that's live with us now.
No, all this is a great learning experience. I mean, no questions so far. I'm just like you said, like learning by watching. But those emails that she's gonna send is gonna help me to get back on. I mean, be to the point where you guys are at. Having more understanding of what this committee does, and I think that's gonna help us here become independent. And it will also help me to give you guys my input on, especially in the Latino community, which is this past few weeks especially, I've noticed that a lot of family members and friends starting using more public transportation because of the raising gas prices. And I could also give you guys an input on all that. And this is really something I'm interested in learning a lot.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah, reach out to any of us that on any in particular topic for any of our transit agencies as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I'll just, make a plug that this committee, we can bring items related to transit and paratransit that anybody's interested in, and it's a great place to discuss whatever topics, relevant topics come up with all of the input from the transit and paratransit operators, as well as social service providers. So, please don't feel shy about asking to put things on the agendas. There's usually some space in the agendas to add various items of interest. All right, with that, let's move down to roundtable updates. Let's see, Stephen, would you like to start us off with an update from Sonoma County Transit?
Sure, thanks, Dana. I don't have a tremendous amount to report, but we are finding that our ridership is in fact increasing. And fixed route in particular, we had ridership highs for last week. And so we're at about 50% of pre-pandemic on the fixed route side. And we've also had ridership highs on the paratransit side. I don't have the percentage pre-pandemic, but they're both going in the right direction. And so we're optimistic. We think that it has a combination of, the restrictions loosening for COVID, and as well as the increase in gas prices. So we're optimistic, still cautiously optimistic, but it's looking good. Other than that, other than our ridership, a quick ridership report, I really don't have. Oh, we just had schedule changes go into effect on Monday, and it was pretty minor. We just added one eastbound trip on Route 20 between Monterey and Santa Rosa to fill in a gap in service, a midday service gap. And then our next fixed route service changes are scheduled mid-June, June 12th, I think. So if there's any questions from anybody, I don't have anything else to report.
Thanks, Stephen.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Yuri, would you like to give an update on Santa Rosa City Bus?
Sure. Yeah, so we just missed the coordination same date as Stephen, but our route changes are going in on Monday, the 20th. And there's a lot more hour. We were kind of on a Saturday reduced schedule. Now we're going back to more of like what's historically been known as a kind of a weekday schedule. I think the only minor changes, I think on Route 1, we're doing a 20-minute frequency, whereas before we did a 15-minute frequency. That just allowed us to have that much more resources to put in other locations. So we have kind of our pre-pandemic level of service close to that. Yeah, same thing, a little bit more ridership with gas prices, and we received a grant for more electrification. So we're looking forward to, we expect to have our first charging and first buses in place by this fall, but this was additional funding for a next level of charging. And otherwise, the one-seat rides with Sonoma County are working well, and we continuing to coordinate with Sonoma County and Petaluma on improved coordination and service levels.
Thanks, Yuri. All right, John, would you like to give an update on Golden Gate?
Sure. From a fixed route standpoint, I don't know if anyone heard, we just reached an agreement with the ATU, so there will be no strike, at least for another year. We renumbered our routes recently, so things like the 70 is now the 150. I'm trying to keep them straight in my head. And the 40 is the 580, which just kind of makes sense anyway. It's the freeway that goes that way, just like our 101 service goes up and down the 101. On the paratransit side, we have a new contractor as of February 1st. It's no longer Vivalon, it is now Transdev. They moved into a new location, which we are still working on putting all the finishing touches on, and new parking locations on the Golden Gate lots. So that's exciting. Same service from a customer standpoint, just a new provider on that one. As far as statistics go, let's see here. Let me pop those up real quick. We are down. We are only at about 30% of our bus and ferry ridership pre-pandemic. Luckily, bridge traffic has increased so that we have the tolls to cover for those. For the most part, that's at about 80% of pre-pandemic levels. So yeah, still way down on the ferry and the bus, hoping that comes up soon. And I think that's all I have.
Thanks, John. All right, Sylvia, would you like to give an update on Petaluma Transit?
Yes, thank you. So for Petaluma Transit, we'd like to continue promoting the Veterans Ride Free program. So any veteran or active military member can go ahead and ride Petaluma Transit for free. They just need to show their driver a valid ID that states that they're a veteran or active military. And that will allow them to ride the system for free. The other item we like to promote is Butter Next Day. That's going to be happening next month, April 23rd, which is a Saturday. So we will be offering free rides, and it's also in coordination in honor of Earth Day. So all of the Bay Area partners, Santa Rosa City Bus, Sonoma County Transit, and Petaluma Transit will be offering free rides on that day. So you can, if you live in Santa Rosa or anywhere in the county, you can ride into Petaluma. You can use Petaluma Transit to get around. If you're going to be attending the parade and you want to drive into Petaluma, if you can get to one of our major bus stop over off of Maria Drive near Safeway, you can go ahead and board our bus route 11. It's going to connect you from the east side to the west side, and then drop you off about a block from the parade. So that's a very convenient way to get into Petaluma and go see the parade without having to struggle with the parking issues that we will have for sure, because they will be closing down downtown area and a lot of the major streets that go into downtown. So please keep that in mind when planning your travel. And again, that day we will have free rides as well. And anything, oh, I think that's about it. That's all I need to report on. Those are two major things that we have going on right now. Thank you.
And I just feel obligated to clarify that we do, like Sylvia said, we do expect to offer, Santa Rosa does expect to offer free fares on the 23rd of April, like she said, but we have not brought that to council, and council's got the ultimate decision on that. We're bringing that to council on the 29th.
Sorry about that, Ari.
No, you know, it's just that it's kind of like we think our council probably wants you to be saying it, but I just we expect it to be we expect to be free, but we just haven't.
It's not
gotten-
official.
Yeah.
All right. Same for you, Steve.
Yeah, we anticipate approval, but it hasn't gone to our board yet. It's okay.
Great, thank you all. I think this is probably a good place to bring it up. Jenna had asked me earlier about mask mandates on transit, and my understanding is that that has been extended at the federal level. They've extended that for another month, so that's through, I believe, April 18th. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay,
April 18th. Yeah.
great.
Do you know when you guys are going to be lifting those mask mandates?
Those mask mandates are from the TSA. So if you're flying on an airplane or riding public transportation, that's so. We were surprised. We were, you know, locally slightly surprised they extended it, but at the same time, we have no real insight into exactly what's going on there, any of the local transit agencies, because that's made at the federal level.
Great, thanks
Are
for.
there any other COVID restrictions that we need to be aware of?
I didn't hear that.
Are there any other COVID related issues that we need to be aware of?
On city bus, it's just wearing a mask at the on the bus. I think if you're at the transit mall, but it's, you know, it's encouraged. I mean, I think you need it at the transit mall too, but it's just the mask is the only thing, at least related to city bus.
For Petaluma Transit, we our policy states per the federal rules that any facilities or transit, so that includes bus stops and inside the vehicle in our offices, we have people wearing masks.
Same for Golden Gate.
And for Sonoma County Transit. It's just status quo. We're all required to have passengers and drivers wear masks until we hear further from TSA.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to our mobility partners. Kathleen, do you have any updates you'd like to give?
Yeah, sure. I think I mentioned last time that we did not go apply for the 5310 funding for volunteer driver programs this year. Mostly has to do with manpower, and we received ARPA funding from the California Department of Aging that we need to put out, and we're just staff limited for that. So some of our programs may suffer financially, and we do know that with COVID, we've seen a decline in the number of volunteer drivers that we're able to recruit in some areas. And also now with the cost of gas going up, it's very difficult to find volunteer drivers. So there's definitely an impact there with our older adults. We like to promote the DASH program. If people are familiar, I don't know how you would advocate for this, but the City of Healdsburg Senior Center through Park and Recs purchased 2 electric vehicles that the city maintains. So the city pays for the insurance and the maintenance. for the vehicles, and then they recruit volunteers to drive the vehicles. So it's a greener, maybe cheaper way of doing business for volunteer driver programs. That's really all. That's what's going on.
Thank you, Kathleen. And Arturo, is there anything you would like to share about becoming independence services or your transportation programs?
Yes, just like Kathleen mentioned, we did submit our 5310, hopefully request for new vehicles because their fleet is aging. And like everybody too, we are also having trouble recruiting new drivers. The ones we have just enough for our routes. Like we're running our routes, I would say 20% of what we were pre-COVID. We're still getting all the funding through alternative service delivery. And I don't know if you guys know, but we're also remodeling our old building. And right now we are located at 1745 Copper Hill Parkway. And hopefully our building is done by the end of the summer or early fall. And when we go back to the other building, we are also going to, increase our routes. Right now we're limited because of the staff and because of the location. We're almost at full capacity at this place because it's smaller. But once we return, we expect to have more routes and provide more services to the people we serve.
Arturo, can you, your routes, when you, those, I guess I may be very ignorant about what they are, but are they typically routes where you're picking people up to bring them to your programs or to your to participate in your services?
Yes. You usually get the people get a purchase service and we pick them up. And also because of the federal mandate that requires more community-based program, we are all starting to slowly phase into more like a shuttle service. So we would pick people from their house and then take them to either, let's say the JC, and then from the JC, there's some other people over there who want to go to different kinds of activities that we'll be having. So we're slowly, slowly moving into the new way we would provide transportation. But for now, we are, because of staff and vehicles, we're continuing doing the picking up people from their houses and bringing them to program, and then staff here takes them out to the community and do various activities. But yeah, most of the people we serve, they come to our program.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for that update. All right, let's move on to public comment. Is there any public comment on items that we haven't covered on the agenda? All right, any other business comments or announcements? All right, seeing none. That comes to the end of, brings us to the end of our agenda. Our next meeting is on May 17th. If anything comes up between now and then that you'd like to talk about at the next meeting, please get in touch with me and I'll try to get it on the agenda. And hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Dana.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.